Guys, thanks for coming firstly. I guess like a lot of other clubs at the moment, we're going through a process of leadership groups, and some other clubs, I suppose, like ourselves, trying to determine captains as well. We finished the leadership process towards the end of last week, and firstly I'd like to introduce the leadership group. The four boys standing over there: Jack Trengove, Mitch Clark, James Frawley, Kyle Garland, along with Nathan Jones and Jack Grimes. I guess through the process it became more and more obvious, both from the coaching point of view and the players' point of view. There was probably two standouts to lead the club. Originally my thoughts were to go through perhaps a practice game situation, but it became obvious that that wasn't necessary. We then went to the board and coaches unanimously recommended Nathan Jones and Jack Grimes as co-captains of the football club. We then took it to the board as the process warranted. This morning we took it back to the remaining leadership group and ratified that with them. So today is really about the leadership group, which we're really pleased to have 6 quality leaders of the football club, and also to introduce the captains for 2014, which I'm really pleased to have Nathan Jones and Jack Grimes leading the football club this year. So congratulations to all those boys. Thank you.
Nathan, how does it feel to become captain?
Oh yeah, obviously it's a great honour. I feel pretty privileged to be in this position. I think probably mainly just for the journey that I've had so far at the footy club. Hasn't been very much on-field success, and to be appointed by the board and in particular voted in by your peers, I feel it obviously a great privilege to hold that position and to be in charge of leading the footy club into a successful period, which I think now we're on the right track. I think in the past I've been through some pretty rough times, but I think there's some real light at the end of the tunnel now. I think the footy club's really sorting itself out, and to be at the head of that along with Grimesy, I'm really obviously honoured and pleased.
When did you decide you wanted to be captain?
Obviously when Roosie came in, he made it clear that that the opportunity was open, and I didn't set out to do anything different. I think for me personally, I just continued on what I'd been doing over the last few years, and obviously the results with how my peers saw me and how the footy club saw me resulted in that, and obviously I'm really honoured to be sharing it with Grimesy. And I think I still remember the day we cracked into the leadership group probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was a pretty senior side then, and Grimesy and I, as two young fellas, were able to get in, and I'm just excited to be in this position with him now, and we've had a couple of good chats about looking forward to taking the footy club forward.
Paul, why Nathan? What sort of characters?
Well, I guess one of the things that I had to do was sort of sit back along with the other coaches. There's only really Jade that had been here a while, so it's a great opportunity for us as a new coaching group to sit back and really by their actions who does lead the football club. And then there was a formal process to go through, obviously with the leading teams and the players voting on the leadership group. But I think it just became more and more obvious, the longer I'd been here and the other coaches, that Nathan was held in really high regard by all the players. Then we got to learn why as a coaching group. His work ethic is so good. He's hungry to learn, and as a past 2-time best and fairest winner, it's great to have a player that wants to continue to get better. Then last week, as we voted on the leadership group, again, it just became obvious amongst the players themselves, and then certainly the coaching group that Jack, through being captain in the past, was still held in really high regard. And then obviously Nathan, through his efforts on the field, but more importantly off the field, was seen certainly equal to Jack as one of the real leaders of the club.
Jack, you've been through an awful lot of your time as captain already, and obviously this is the beginning of a new chapter. Why were you so keen to retain a captaincy role?
Well, I guess I see myself as a much better captain today than what I was day one. I feel like, although I have been through a fair bit over the last couple of years, as all these boys have, but I feel like I've learned a lot from it, and I really feel like I've developed as a person and a leader as well. So I was really keen to put my hand up. Roosie came in pretty early and asked my opinion on it all and how I was dealing with it, and I made it clear that there were times that I struggled, but at the same time they were the times that I developed the most as a person too. So I was definitely putting my hand up, but I mean, as Jonesy said, to be considered to lead this club forward at the stage that we're at, alongside someone like Jonesy, who's like one of the last couple of best and fairest, and just the way he's gone about it, it is a huge honour.
What's going to be different, do you think, for Demons fans in 2014?
Well, I think you can see, or we can see as players, the difference in training already. The difference in, I guess, the intensity that we go about our training and what the focuses are on training. And I think you'll really see a change in our defensive side to our game. It was clear that we had to improve in a fair few areas from last year, but a lot of the focus over pre-season has been on nailing that defence, and then all the offence will come from there. So I think that'll be the main difference that you'll see this year.
Nathan, what was the reaction of your family, your little bro just making his way into the footy world and your larger family?
Obviously excitement. Obviously, when I told them last night, they had to keep it quiet for 24 hours or so. So, they were pretty contained at the time. My two brothers were really excited when I spoke to them. So,
Paul, what do you expect from this group of boys?
Well, a lot of it is about doing what they do really well. When as a new coach coming to a new footy club, you're just seeing what the behaviours are already, and then you sort of set us some standards and behaviours, and you hope that the players live up to them. But I'm really confident in this group, the way they carry themselves, and I think one of the things that coaches don't know is what happens away from the footy club. I mean, most players train really hard when they're here, but it's what happens away from the footy club I think makes great football teams. And obviously they've got a lot of confidence in each other to uphold the standards and values of the club when they're not here, when they're not at the football club. So I think the main thing for leaders is to do what they're doing, particularly now when you have leadership groups. It's not is incumbent on one person to carry the standards. They complement each other. There's also a number of other boys that just missed out on the leadership group that these boys will call on as well. So it is... it is a group situation now where you can lean on other players. If you're going through a lean patch of form, then you can lean on other guys if you're going through injury. So I think it's just being themselves. I'm really impressed with the quality of personnel we have, the way they train, the way they present themselves, and if they continue to do that, I'm confident enough in we'll become a good football club at some point.
How's leading teams helped?
It's just a really good process to go through. I think a lot of talk about player empowerment and culture and all those sorts of things, and I think the players would agree that it's probably been a little bit more transparent this time than in the past. The players have a say in obviously who their leaders are. Through that, it's probably a bit of a myth that the players pick the captains, the players pick the leadership group, and I think it's important the captains are picked from the coaching staff and from the board and all those areas. Certainly, you're not going to have a captain now that's outside the leadership group. But it's just a formal process, it's a transparent process, and it's something the players seem to enjoy being part of now.
Coming to the end of the pre-season, just about your expectations, have that changed at all, or have you been behind the norms?
I think the expectations I have is just to try and set some really high standards and obviously get the players more involved in what we're doing. I'm still learning about the players. I mean, we train really well. How do we go in games? And that's the unknown for me. I've been really pleased with the way the players have embraced what the coach have tried to teach, certainly from a training point of view. Training from day one compared to this morning's session is dramatically different. There's been some significant improvements, but until we really see them play in the heat of the battle, and understand what happens, when the team kicks 2 or 3 goals against us or whatever. But at this stage, I'm really pleased with the efforts and the improvement that's been made.
It's a challenge for the leadership players to instill what you want on match day if those 2 and 3 goals start coming in run-ons from the opposition.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, leadership, we all talk about leadership now off-field, which is super important. There's no question. But the biggest test of leadership is on-field. Who's going to react to the situations, and that's why we do these things, who is going to be the one that makes the right decision, and hopefully it's a big group of players. Good footy teams, their leadership groups act well on-field. But there's not just one. There's not just the captain. Luke Hodge and the Hawthorn Footy Club have a great group of leaders that can all react well. Why Freo made some significant gains last year, because it's not just up to Matty Pavlich. It's a lot of players doing the right things in the heat of the battle, and I think that's just what separates the really good football teams from the younger teams or the teams that are struggling.
Just for Nathan and Jack, have you guys guys discussed how you're going to have a dynamic with two captains is going to work? Is in who takes the role on what days?
Not really at this stage. We only found out late yesterday, so we're sort of just sinking in, I think, for both of us. But look, I don't feel like it'll be an issue at all, and we might rock off to see who tosses the coin on round one and that sort of thing. But no, I think apart from that, there's not really much that I think that the captain always has to do individually different to everyone else. And the other leaders that are standing in the room, like we feel like we'll get all the help that we need from them too. So I don't think there's any or too many roles specifically that we have to like individualise to one of another. But we'll wait and see how it pans out.
Jack, you mentioned about what you've learned and developed, through the hard times. What would be the advice that you give to Nathan about what he can expect and the challenges he might face?
Yeah, well, I think that probably the first thing I did say to him was just to not change, and he's got to the position because of what he's doing already. And like I probably fell into that trap early on when I was first announced as a co-captain, was trying to be what I thought a captain should be rather than just doing what I was doing, as Rudy said. So I think that's the main thing. It's just to keep being you and not trying to be anyone else, and keep showing the great qualities that got you there in the first place.
Nathan, you ready to deal with the extra pressure and spotlight that comes with being captain?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to the challenge. I think, as Grimes said though, we've got the boys in the room, and there's another sort of 5 or 6 guys also to pick up the slack and help on game day in particular. Obviously, there's going to be a bit more pressure. There's pressure on myself to step up as a player individually, but as a captain, I just feel if I can continue to do what I'm doing, that I'll be able to lead the way.
And what sort of a captain will you be? Like, you going to lead by example on the field, or are you going to be more vocal? Or?
Oh, probably both those characteristics. I think Grimes and I probably complement each other a little bit, and yeah, I'll just continue to do that. Mainly leading the way on the field if I can, and probably the direction. Obviously, plan, structuring up the players, and making sure that the system works how we've practiced and how we've trained.
Paul, a couple of months ago, you were just when you were appointed coach of this football club. What surprised you in the last couple of months about how this group's tracking or what you've seen?
Probably not so much surprised, because I must admit, I came in with an open blueprint. I didn't really have any expectations, good or bad, to be honest. But they're a really coachable group. I mean, they're a really good group of people. And I think probably most footy clubs are now with the filtering system through the TAC Carp and recruiting and all those sorts of things. But they're just a really good group of guys. They want to learn. I think that's probably the biggest thing. That they are frustrated for the fans, frustrated, I guess, for themselves as well, that they haven't had much success over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. You can see that frustration. Sometimes I have to pull them back a bit because they want to, get to up the 3rd rung of the ladder before we jump on the 1st and 2nd rung. But that's good. I mean, they're really enthusiastic, and what's next? Where are we going now? What are we doing now? And I have to pull their coat sometimes and tell them to relax a bit. But so from that point of view, it's been really good. They're really professional. So I don't know whether surprised, as I said, because I certainly wanted to come in with it, with no expectations, good or bad, as I said, and just learn about the group. And I think we said that the first sort of 2 or 3 months was just going to be getting relationships sorted with players and coaches, and us understanding, what they can do and what they can't do. So they're a good group of guys and very, very coachable.
Well, can I ask about Jack? Obviously, kept him in the leadership group. Why did you do that, and how did that come about? And is it important he stays in that group?
Yeah, I think with obviously Jack Tringo, but different to Grimesy. I mean, when I spoke to Trenners, it was more, I think he did find it a bit of a burden, and he's touched on that. But I suppose we're also strong on that. If you voted in the leadership group, then you should be in the leadership group. And Jack was always keen to continue as a role model. And I think, one thing I certainly have noticed since I've been here, probably wasn't ready. Was it 3 years ago, Trenners, or whatever it was? But I reckon he's probably ready now, So it's just out of, I think, the fact that he actually wants to concentrate on his game, which is the right thing to do, and wants to develop as a footballer. But certainly there's no question that he's one of the leaders within the group, which was showed last week that they voted for him. And most of the players certainly see Trenners as very much one of the leaders of the footy club.
Chris George, Shannon Burns and Geordie McKenzie were in the leadership group last year. Have you spoken to them specifically about the change?
Yeah, look, I think Jonesy touched on it a bit before. There were some other guys that we probably could have had in the leadership group, including some of the ones you mentioned there before. But the players themselves were pretty keen to stick to the 6. Felt last year was maybe a bit too many. But certainly a couple of those guys will be called upon by the guys, their experience, and are seen in really high regard within the group. So, I think we're fortunate as a club. I mean, we're a young club and a club that's certainly developing from a games won. I mean, we won 2 games last year. But it does seem that there's some really good leaders within the group. It's the 6 here, but also outside the group. And certainly guys like Dawsey and Burnsy coming from good footy clubs, and obviously Geordie's held in the highest regard amongst his peers. But it was probably at the end of the day more the players themselves felt that 6 was enough, and as a coaching group we agreed with them in the end.
Jack, last year you were really vocal about how intense the pre-season was, and it was a great pre-season from all accounts. Has that gone up another notch under before? Is it different?
Well, I think all pre-seasons are hard and all pre-seasons are pretty intense, but probably I guess what we're training specifically now, and the specific things that we want to work on in our game, and the way we attack them and really go at them until we nail them, and constantly evolve those little things into the game plan. That's probably been the biggest thing I've noticed, is the little specific things that you need to improve, especially defensively, to be a good team. And we've worked on them and worked on them really hard. So, I mean, as Reggie said, we haven't seen them in a game yet, but at training they've improved a lot. So we're looking forward to putting them to the test.
Nathan, does all the extra meetings, etc., mean less time surfing?
I hope not. Well, I think I'll just assume that it's going to be pretty similar to being in the leadership group last year. I was lucky enough to be a vice captain last year, and I'm expecting a similar workload with that, and I'll squeeze surfing in where I can.
You've also got a bit more responsibility on the way as well. You've got I think your wife's expecting a child, is that true?
Yep, I think due first week of July at this stage, so pretty big year.
And Paul, you just said before that this group's got the hunger to succeed. They're very, very coachable. You've got a lot of talent. It's just the biggest obstacle now reinstilling that belief in the boys that came in.
I think so. I mean, when you've struggled for a while, and obviously there's a lot of scars when you get beaten. You only win 2 games and you lose 20, and then you've had a couple of really bad years. There's some sort of scars there. It's only human nature so I think that's our biggest challenge. Just to get some real confidence and belief in each other. I think it's certainly evolved between the coaching staff and the playing group. I think there's some real confidence between both those groups now. But we haven't played against anyone at training. We look good at training. We haven't played against anyone yet other than the coaches, and they're pretty easy to get around. So that's going to be obviously the test. I think the players are ready for the test, and they're probably pretty keen to get out and play. We've still got a lot of work to do, and I understand that, and they understand it. But look, I think that's certainly one of the challenges. Just some real belief. When things aren't going their way, that they can stand up, and the game plan stands up, and they just play their role within the team. And that might take some time. Hopefully not, but it may.
Paul, no great expectations, but are there any non-negotiables that you play any 2 or 3 non-negotiables?
Well, I think the players would have an understanding of what my non-negotiables are, and I think certainly one of them is, if you want to get a game with us, you play your role. You understand what it is, and then you play it. It doesn't matter whether you're Nathan Jones or Jack Grimes or any of the boys over here. I think they need to be running out round 1 absolutely 100% certain what their roles are. So if I can't get that across to them, then I haven't done my job. But if I have done my job, then you'll get your games based on that. And I think that's probably one of our real non-negotiables as a team. We want to be a good team, and that's what Freo and Hawthorn and Geelong and Sydney and the top 4 sides are good teams. And that's what we want to be.
So Nathan, if it's your turn to toss the coin and the party goes into Labour in July, what happens?
Well, at this stage, I think we play in Darwin, so I would have made that call earlier in the week. But I'll be at the birth of my child. I hope.
Is that a non-negotiable?
I think playing your role as a dad first. Pretty important. Happy wife, happy life, Jonesy.
I'll work that one out.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good on you. Appreciate it.
I'll head down the boundary line for those who want